Hello, everyone. Welcome to Staycations to Vacations. This is a discussion about Missouri's tourism industry following the height of COVID-19. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. My name is Emily Hood. I'll be moderating today's conversation. I'm a reporter here at Missouri Business Alert. And for those of you who are new to Missouri Business Alert, we're a digital publication that provides top business news from across Missouri. And we also host events like this one and as a resource for the state's business community. So joining me today is Missouri Business Alert's editor, Michael Stacy.
Thanks, Emily, and hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us here today. Before we get going, I want to just briefly mention a couple other things that the team here at Missouri Business Alert is working on. First, we have a daily email newsletter, The Morning Minutes, that delivers the day's top business news from across the state. And you can subscribe for free at missouribusinessalert.com/subscribe. Again, that's missouribusinessalert.com/subscribe. Also, I want to cue you into our weekly podcast called Speaking Startup. It focuses on entrepreneurship in Missouri, and it covers the news and issues important to business people in the state. You can find that wherever you find podcasts. I'm here today to help facilitate audience participation, and we want everyone in the Zoom and on Facebook and elsewhere to ask questions and engage in the conversation. So how can you do that? There are a few ways. First of all, if you're joining us via Zoom, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you're tuned in on Facebook, you can ask questions in the comments section. And if you're on Twitter, you can tweet at us. Our handle is @MoBusinessAlert. That's @MoBusinessAlert. So would encourage you to engage and chime in and ask questions. And with that, I will hand things back to Emily.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much, Michael. So today on our panel, we want to discuss the impacts of the loss of tourism throughout the state during COVID, some of the strategies tourist attractions used to stay open and help cater to customers, and kind of what the path forward is for tourism for Missouri, both this year and in the coming years. So we're very happy to have a panel of tourism experts from across the state joining us to share their insights. So I want to briefly introduce each of our panelists, and I'm going to have them tell us a little bit about their roles and also their organizations. So first up, we have Stephen Foutes.
I'm Stephen Foutes, Director of the State of Missouri's Division of Tourism. Our role at the Division of Tourism is to market Missouri as a leisure travel destination to primarily a Midwestern audience, though we do have national and international efforts.
All right, awesome. And next, I'd like to introduce Kevin Henderson.
Hello, my name is Kevin Henderson. I'm the CEO of the College Basketball Experience at National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame in Kansas City, downtown Kansas City at T-Mobile Center. The CBE and Hall of Fame represents all of men's collegiate basketball in the country and is a national destination attraction for men's collegiate basketball. It's a celebration of the game on a daily basis, and we're open, we're available 365 days out of the year.
And next we have Hubert Heck.
Hi, I'm with fantastic Caverns, and that is in Springfield, Missouri. We are America's ride through caves. So the only step we ask you to take is into the tram. Otherwise, you get to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show underground. So.
And finally, we've got Peggy Hoefel.
Hi there, I'm Peggy. I, with my husband, own Hoefel Haus, B&B, and Bike Hostel in Washington, Missouri. We bought this lovely house in 2016 and renovated it back to its historic standards. And now it hosts a lovely B&B for guests all across Missouri and all across the United States. And we're really excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here, and let's get on into the discussion. So our first question is for everyone. And so this conversation is largely going to be about recovery and the road ahead for Missouri tourism. But I want to quickly get a sense of where we've come from and kind of time travel back to March of 2020. So for all of the panelists, I want to ask, what was your most pressing concern pertaining to your organization at the start of the pandemic? So Stephen, I'll start with you, and then we'll go in the order of our introductions.
Sure. Thanks, Emily. I think that, really the most pressing concern was kind of being forward looking and what is, or at that time, what was the way out. And I think maybe like a lot of folks, when we first heard that the Missouri was being impacted, we maybe thought it was a couple of weeks, maybe a month, that the life would be kind of out of balance and that things would get back to whatever normal was. And after that first month or how, whatever time period, I think we all realized that this was going to be something we were encountering and working on for a long time. So really just trying to make sure that we kept Missouri as a travel destination in front of consumers, but did so responsibly so that when they were ready to travel and make decisions about travel, they thought about Missouri. And that was kind of our primary thought process and goal right out of the gate.
All right, and go ahead, Kevin.
Basically the same thing, how long it would last. It caught everybody off guard. And how would what did this mean at the end of the day when we had to shut down operations? How much it would cost us in the end, the impact on the bottom line. And if it were to continue, if the shutdown were to continue, what would be the impact to the organization? And there was an impact. Furloughs resulted from the pandemic. And so we had to react to the prolonged shutdown in ways that we really didn't want to do, but we had to.
And I would agree with, both Kevin and Steve. It's one of those things that there weren't too many things to fall back on as far as what to do to move forward. But trying to stay top of mind as much as possible for us at the cave. We wanted to encourage conservation where we could. One thing we realized with the start of the pandemic is we had an opportunity to maybe provide activities or a lesson plan, if you will, that kind of covered caves and karsts with a lot of people at home with their kids, give them something to do. So I wrote some blog posts about like limestone, fossil sugar cookies, things like that, things you could do to kind of incorporate caves in your classroom or at home, which a lot of people found themselves. And so, but I think it was just trying to be adaptable at that time. Like, you didn't know what the timeline was going to be. And so whether it was going to be 2 weeks or multiple months, at that point, it was, I think a lot of our focus was, okay, what projects could we focus on to maybe add value for the future when we are opening? With that being a little bit shorter than it was, we thought it was going to be maybe, a few weeks, like Stephen had mentioned, but, we just kind of rolled with the punches.
I think our focus, I'm a registered nurse, so initially I followed the coverage very closely. And in fact, the first victim in Missouri was a colleague of mine. And so it really brought it home that safety was a primary concern for us, and making sure that if guests wanted to join us, that they were safe. So we developed a cleaning routine that made sure that high-touch surfaces were cleaned on a regular basis. We had hand sanitizers available. We offered en-suite dining if that was our guests' desire. I think that, initially it was very broadcast that transmission on inanimate surfaces was a possibility. And so we were very concerned about that because in such an intimate setting, there's a lot of opportunity for transmission. So I think initially that was our big focus, is how can we keep people that want to come stay with us safe?
And if I could, let me just quickly clarify something. The reason why we had to totally shut down the college basketball experience was simply because we have a very highly interactive space, and you actually play here. And so with that coupled with our event business, you cannot socially distance in our space. So the determination was made by me and in consultation with our board that we had to shut down.
And, social distancing and staying home was certainly a theme of those first few months of COVID-19 as the country and state were grappling with the pandemic. Residents were staying home, they were canceling travel plans, which really took a big hit to the tourism industry. So, Stephen, could you give us a little bit of perspective on the initial impacts of COVID-19 on tourism in Missouri?
Yeah, so we had different groups looking at different components of the overall industry. One of the firms that we use is a group called Tourism Economics, and they are used nationally. And some of the analysis they put together for us looked at really March through December. I'll kind of give that picture, if you will, of March through December. And they calculated that tourism-related spending declined by about $6.5 billion over that time frame. Certainly, the state's lodging industry was significantly impacted during that time. And I think the lodging industry alone, and this research comes from a group called STR Lodging, was about $1.25 billion lost over that kind of same time frame, mid-March through end of December. So we obviously with declines in visitation come those declines in tourism-related spending, and I think that the data we have certainly correlates with that.
And weathering those first few initial months of COVID-19 restrictions were very challenging for many businesses, trying to figure out how to keep your doors open, but also how to keep employees and customers safe. So, Hubert, I know Fantastic Caverns, you all closed from March to about mid-May of 2020. So can you talk me through some of the things you all did in that time period where you were closed to stay in business?
Well, we did not have any income coming in at that time. So we did just focus on projects to add value. So one of those few opportunities when a visitor center that normally has, guests filled, we waxed the floors, we, installed new partitions in the bathroom, just kind of upgrading the space where we could. Like I said, part of what I did was go online, post blogs to try to make caves a little bit more relatable for those folks stuck at home or wanting to do activities. And so for us, I think a large part of that was just kind of adding value to the property. And I'll be honest, that was more expenditures than it was income coming in, but we knew at some point we were going to be able to welcome guests, and we wanted to be able to have a nice clean facility. And obviously at that point, approaching that May opening, we knew we were going to have, those plexiglass barriers and a bit of reorienting as far as how we were going to do our visitor center and how we were going to welcome guests. So,
and Peggy, I know you all mentioned that Hoefel Haus remained open in March, April, and May of 2020, but you guys saw a big decrease in booking reservations. So what were some of the things you guys did to stay open?
Well, we did see a decline in reservations in, let me see, the third quarter was a big decline. So that's really after that May period that you're talking about. But our initial part of the year is not that busy. And, we don't have a lot of data to compare because our first full year in business was 2019. So with opening in 18 for a partial year, we're comparing 19 to 20, but it was really our first year. So, it wasn't a dramatic change. We had about looks like a 33% drop in actual persons that came to the business in 19 or in 20 versus 19, but the revenues were actually up. So we found that people were open to doing more things within our setting because it was limited from a large crowd. So we had many more people requesting dinners being made. So we had private dinners that we made because my husband is the chef. So he's able to cook for a good number of people. So we found that they utilize different services than they would have in the past. So previously they may have come to Washington to experience some of the restaurants or go to events. And since those weren't going on, we found that they spent more time at our place, which was really great. But in addition to that, we tried to really be flexible with people and make them feel comfortable in our setting. So, I had some requests of people that a group that wanted to come and rent the whole house, but they also had some people in their group that didn't want to come in the house and they wanted to stay in an RV. So we figured out how their RV could be set up near our place so that the people could see each other and spend time together, but maybe not necessarily stay in the house. So we found that being flexible was really a great way to encourage people to continue to come.
And Kevin, you hit on this a little bit in our first part of the panel here, but the college basketball experience has been closed since March 2020, and you guys have plans to reopen in August of this year. And we discussed a little bit about how the college basketball experience had to furlough quite a bit of your staff. So can you talk me through what went into those decisions and how you guys navigated those difficult processes of deciding to close?
Emily, I'm not sure if you can see it, but on my screen, it looks like Kevin may have dropped off.
Ah, I see that. Oh, all right. Well, we will move along then, and we'll see if Kevin comes back to us and jump back to him here in a second. So I want to talk to Stephen next, and a majority of Missouri tourists are coming from in-state or surrounding border states. That's been a common theme of Missouri tourism before the pandemic even. So Stephen, how do you think Missouri's position as a drive-to market for tourism has helped tourist attractions in the state through COVID? And what were some of the changes you were seeing in 2020 of where visitors were coming from?
Yeah, I think one of the things that if there's any bright lights to take from this, it was that people were more willing to hop in the car and do some of those weekend trips in state, state, maybe closer to home. Again, traveling, kinds of things. And one of the big things to me that came out of this really is kind of a rediscovery, if you will, of what's around you and maybe a greater appreciation. I think, for those of us who are native to Missouri or have been in Missouri a long time, we have outdoor settings and some great natural beauty. Our state parks, our Missouri Department of Conservation areas, always have done a great job of welcoming visitors and giving them plenty of room to explore. And across the nation, I think we really saw that. We monitored consumer sentiment reports daily, weekly, monthly, and we continue to do so. And outdoor opportunities continue to rank very highly with what people want to do, and what people still have perhaps a little bit higher levels of comfort with. I think there is growing comfort in being in the urban settings, being around larger groups of people. But the sentiment numbers we're looking at still kind of skew toward those outdoor, rural, small town type destinations. And so I think as a drive-to destination that is kind of in that unique position, we're one of 2 states that touches 8 other states. We're able to kind of maintain some of that core travel and a lot of that in-state travel. And I think, different destinations certainly reaped the benefits of that. And, I think that there, again, was a little bit of that rediscovery and newfound appreciation for what's close by and the outdoor beauty and the destinations that are here in Missouri.
Certainly. And I see Kevin is back with us now, so I want to jump back to that question from earlier. So Kevin, you mentioned in your intro that the college basketball experience has been closed since March of 2020, and you all have plans to reopen in August of this year. So I know the college basketball experience had to furlough some staff, and I was curious to hear your insight on what went into those initial decisions when you were talking about closing the CBE, and how did you navigate that difficult process of figuring out how to furlough staff?
Well, initially, when we first closed, when the decision was made to close, again, we did not know how long we would be, how long this issue would be with us. So we actually held on to our staff, our complete staff, sans our part-timers, for 90 days. My executive staff and my full-time salaried staff, I hung on to for 90 days. And then as the pandemic raged in the country and infections and deaths occurred at astronomical numbers, the decision had to be made purely for financial reasons to jettison, and I use that word lightly, to jettison some staff to help us on the bottom line. And so basically we our three youngest executive staff members were furloughed at that point. We just took it from a seniority standpoint.
Gotcha. And the kinds of go ahead.
And it was a difficult decision. There was nothing about that decision that was anything that I enjoyed. I actually lost one of those employees permanently because of that, not because of the furlough, but because he had to work, and unemployment just wasn't working for him, so he had to find other employment during that time. So it hurt.
Certainly. And one of the kinds of travelers that we were seeing who were coming to attractions across the state certainly shifted. So Peggy, I know you saw some shifts in the kinds of customers who were coming to Hoefel Haus, transitioning away from some weddings and guests in the wedding industry. So can you speak to how you adapted to this loss of wedding visitors and the kinds of customers that you're now seeing at the bed and breakfast?
Sure. Yeah, the weddings, many weddings were canceled, and Washington seems to be a destination for weddings. And so we would get sometimes wedding parties and many times wedding guests. So we did see that decline. We did have a party that wanted to postpone the wedding, and they postponed the wedding for another year and held their reservation. And then when it came around again, it ended up being canceled. So I saw more cancellations throughout the year because people were planning on things and then it would find that the pandemic was continuing on and it wasn't safe to have a large wedding. And so then the wedding was canceled and then the reservations were canceled. So that was kind of the change in our business. But we did see bicyclists, an uptick in bicyclists. So since we have the Katy Trail just adjacent here to Washington, we saw a lot more bicyclists and groups of bicyclists, friends that wanted to get together in a safe way. We saw much more, we're closer to St. Louis, we're about 45 minutes outside of St. Louis, but we're more between the 3 and 4 hour mark from Kansas City. So we saw an increase in Kansas City visitors. So they were wanting to get out of the Kansas City area, but still stay within arm's reach of, home. And so we saw a lot of that. And that comment that was made earlier about being in touch with 8 different states, I think that that's what we heard people were looking for, a place they could take a day trip. It didn't have to be too far away, but it had to be outside of their regular norm. And it worked well for us because we were ready to pick up on that kind of business.
So next, I want to shift to the reopening process and all of the logistics that come with maintaining a business and maintaining organizations amid a pandemic, as I'm sure we all learned in the past 16 months or so. So a big part of bringing visitors in during the pandemic was maintaining safety both for customers and safety both for employees. So Hubert, I'll start with you. You touched on a little bit of this, but could you talk me through some of the new safety protocols that Fantastic Caverns implemented during COVID-19 and which of those you think are going to be sticking around here?
Yeah, so I mean, like everybody, we were quick to adapt, kind of always looking at what was the guidelines that were put in place, and trying to make sure that we communicated that to our team. But we put up the plexiglass barriers. We started disinfecting those high touch surfaces. That includes in the visitor center and on tram. So I will say when it comes to our guides, they're, normally they were just timing themselves based on, when they first departed, but now we also had to include this kind of disinfecting regimen. And so I will say a testament to them and just being adaptable in their hard work, because they were able to incorporate that with pretty seamlessly. And that is one of those that I think we will continue, just because it is kind of a nice way to kind of just make sure, hey, this place is space is ready for you or the next group. And so, but yeah, we continue to disinfect those high touch surfaces throughout the facility. It's just something that honestly, you smell it. It's those little subtle hints that people are like, this smells clean, you know? So, and then we have reduced the number of people we put on a tram. We were closer to 30. We did go down to 15 initially. And then now, as we've kind of adjusted, we're following CDC guidelines. So our team members, if they're vaccinated, they do not have to wear a mask. We do not enforce masking on property though. So we just kind of let guests come as they wish. But we are at about 25 people now. So a slight reduction from what we were initially. But I don't think we'll ever go back. I think people like having that elbow room. And so, you know, anybody can clean a little bit more. I could clean my house a little bit more. But I will say, so that's something that's always appreciated. And then I think having that little bit of space in the trams. I mean, before we weren't packing them in so tight that they couldn't move, but it's just one of those things as far as just a comfort level. You're able to kind of group with your party and not necessarily be elbow to elbow with somebody you're not arriving with. And so those are things that I think will kind of continue to stick, but the plexiglass barriers are not there anymore. That's one thing we realized there was sometimes for some guests to communicate that was just that other layer of what'd you say? And so, you know, we want to make sure that we're communicating effectively with both our team members and our guests. So I will say that, you know, trying to do that safely, you know, we're still encouraging folks, if they want masks, we have them available, but I think most guests have mentioned that they're vaccinated and ready to get back out. And so I think now we're at this point where I think we're just seeing a lot of people ready to get going.
And Peggy, I know you also mentioned that communication was a big part about helping guests feel safe. So what do you think are some of the best ways for businesses to communicate these safety guidelines and instill confidence in their customers? And what were some of the things that you guys did?
Well, because of the scope of our business, I am able to communicate pretty directly with our guests. So once reservation is made, I usually check in with our guests to find out about any dietary considerations. So that's a big one for us that we like to know about up front so that we can accommodate anything that guests need. So along with that, I can always talk about any concerns they have about transmissible diseases and what safety measures we have in place. But I think, and giving the opportunity to have those guests ask the questions or ask if we can accommodate a particular request has made such a difference. And I think that we'll continue to do that. But of course, you know, our website and our Facebook page all talk about, you know, the safety and the cleanliness and having the hand sanitizer available and that sort of thing. And so we will certainly continue to do those things to keep the high standard that has been raised in the same place.
And another key factor of reopening is making sure you have the staff to be able to do so. So Kevin, the college basketball experience is looking right now for more part-time staff to help with its upcoming reopening. So what has been your experience so far looking for some of these staff members? And what do you think are some things businesses who are looking to hire right now should be looking for in their potential hirees?
Well, first, we've only been on this for about a couple of weeks now. It's been a little tough, to be honest with you. I don't know if that has anything to do with the boosted unemployment benefits that occurred, but it's not only been tough for us, but it's been tough for neighboring businesses as well. We've heard from neighboring businesses such as the Arena that T-Mobile Center that they're having a very tough time finding part-time staff as well. So I think this is just happening in the local, in our local economy, that part-time workers are just hard to come by right now. But we're going to keep beating the bushes until we find what we need, because we really can't operate without it. So we're working hard to try to get interested people to come in and talk to us and see if we can provide them an opportunity.
And Kevin, I know you also mentioned too that having a good staff has been one of the things that has really helped the college basketball experience. So can you talk to me about how your staff has been able to help you through the past 15 months?
Oh, well, for the past 15 months, it's just, I have a very capable executive staff. These are salaried, college educated employees, and they're very capable in what they do. I mean, when I was logged off a few minutes ago, it had to do with us trying to get our facility ready. Our network is being worked on, and it went down. So, but these are the issues that you confront when you're trying to reopen a facility of this size. But having a competent staff is really, your human resource is your best resource. And I have very capable folks that know what they're doing for the areas that they oversee. And without them, there would be no CBE success. And so we're fortunate to have good people on the staff to be able to carry through. And over the last 16 months, just them keeping the faith and doing the little things that needed to be done during that time period, it was critical to us being able to return and to try to carry on.
And so I want to shift now to the future of tourism in our state. So, Stephen, I want to also talk to you about some of the hiring challenges that we're hearing. So, what have been some of the things you've been hearing about hiring issues in Missouri in regards to the hospitality industry?
I think Kevin probably hit on it a little bit here, and the evidence I have, quite honestly, is anecdotal. But I think we're seeing in a lot of the segments of the industry, whether that's hotels, restaurants, attractions, to find employees right now. I just, again, as an anecdotal piece, I was frequenting a restaurant, and they had a sign on the door that they weren't able to be open from a certain time, or maybe it was one day of the week because they didn't have enough staffing. And I think that I do not think that that is a unique problem to that restaurant that I stopped by last night. So I'm not sure what the answer is on the workforce challenges, but I do know that from virtually every level that is something that's being experienced. And the Division of Tourism is a part of the Department of Economic Development. So I would take this one kind of extra step and say the challenges that we are kind of talking about with our colleagues and other sections of the Department of Economic Development are not necessarily unique to the tourism industry. I think many other business groups and sectors of the economy have seen employment recover a little bit more quickly, but the challenges that are in the travel and hospitality industry are being seen and felt across a wide variety of industries. And so it's not necessarily a tourism specific issue. It is really kind of a general employment issue at this time.
And Stephen, how do you think some of these hiring challenges could hinder some of the return of Missouri's tourism? And what are going to be some of those key factors in helping bring Missouri tourism back over the next year?
Yeah, I think, in terms of a hindrance, I mean, eventually, this is Stephen's opinion only, but eventually I think that these things will self-correct and the workforce will kind of return to the more normal levels, or these jobs will get filled. Again, we're the destination marketing organization for the state of Missouri. So what our role is to really in front of, we're going to be aggressive with that. We have been very aggressive with a marketing campaign for the last 4 months. Since the middle of March, we launched a new marketing campaign. We're seeing good results in terms of traffic to our website and interest in our social media channels and social media engagements and things of that nature. And so again, for me, And for the Division of Tourism, it's really about being aggressive with our marketing efforts and keeping in front of consumers. And as Hubert noted, keeping Missouri that top of mind, if you will, with consumers. That's really going to be important and, in my opinion, helpful in driving the visitor economy back to those pre-pandemic, 2018, 2019 levels.
And Kevin, you all will be reopening in August. And what advice would you give to businesses who are in the process of reopening and they're trying to get back in front of those tourism and tourists and also being top of mind for marketing campaigns?
Well, I think our strategy is going to be, I actually don't think that things are going to get back completely to normal for another 12 to 18 months. So my philosophy at the moment is to kind of go slow and to rebuild the business in kind of a slow, steady pace. Because I really don't think normalcy will return for another 12, 18 months for our business. So the only advice that I would give is to take all that into consideration, that things aren't going to get back to normal immediately. And it's affecting, that idea is affecting my decision making on how we operate over the next 12 to 18 months. It may affect our public facing hours. Now, we're always available 7 days a week. The facility can be rented for any event 7 days a week, but our public facing hours may change a little bit just so that we can put our feet back in the pool and understand what's going on around us and give us an opportunity to really build back what we lost over those 15, 16 months. That makes sense.
So, Kevin, a follow-up to that, what are you seeing as roadblocks for that return to normalcy? And are you guys having any plans to help address that?
For us is how is the public perceiving, normalcy? We can open all day, but if the public isn't comfortable coming out and mixing with people, then what do? I mean, we could be ready. We could swing the doors open and welcome everybody back and say, come back and see us, this, that, and the other. But if they're not yet comfortable that they're going to be safe, then it's going to be a hard sell at the end of the day, because it really has nothing to do with us. It has to do with a public health issue that's going on in our country that only government officials have answers to, to help make the public feel comfortable about being out and about. Now, I do see, people wanting to be out and about. I don't see people cowering in their homes like we did for 15 or 16 months. That's why we're back at work. But I don't know if the comfort level to come into enclosed spaces and to play basketball is going, if that time is now. We can have 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 100 people interested in coming to see us, but 100 people doesn't get the job done. I need thousands of people, and I need thousands of people to feel comfortable being in an inside venue, enclosed space, with this pandemic thing still with us, this COVID-19 thing still with us. So that's the battle, is trying to convince the public that we're a safe environment, and we may have to do some things differently. We may have to limit attendance at any one time, but we're working through those issues now. So.
And Peggy, I know you all are also working on a guest house expansion right now, in addition to the bed and breakfast. And another big thing that's happening in your area as well is Washington is very close to Augusta, where there have been some plans to try and turn that into a national tourism destination. So can you tell me a little bit about where you're seeing the future of tourism in your area going, and what some of the things that businesses can do to prepare for this influx in Augusta in the next couple of years?
Yeah, we are really optimistic about tourism in Washington. 9 miles via bicycle is Augusta, Missouri, where David Hoffman has committed to invest $100 million in making Augusta the Napa of the Midwest. So for us, that means very positive information being spread about travel to our area. And since we offer lodging, we think we're in an ideal position to get involved with that and appreciate the benefits of that. So as a result, we've decided to expand our offerings to not just the bed and breakfast experience or the bike hostel experience that we have now, but to offer short-term rentals. So we bought an 1883 log cabin that we're rehabbing now in preparation for the influx of people coming to the area. And as far as what we see or what we would believe would be beneficial is to making sure that the people that come to the area are comfortable and can see the awesome things that are here. I mean, the charm of a small town has not been lost in Washington, even though we're as close as we are to St. Louis. People come all the time and tell us how friendly people are and how it has such a lovely small town feel. And so I think maintaining those characteristics that are the draw is going to be key for us. And I think we're situated to do that very well. So I'm thinking that it's really a great opportunity for us, what's going on in Missouri right now, and having maybe the national spotlight on us to let people around the country know what's here and what we have to offer.
What do you think, Peggy, are going to be some of the big changes that we're going to be seeing in the next couple of years to help accommodate for this possible national big influx of tourism?
Well, what I've been reading about Mr. Hoffman's plan is that many people are concerned about the small, winding rural roads that surround Augusta and Washington, and are concerned about the influx of traffic and what that means to the infrastructure and that sort of thing. And my understanding is that the purchase of Midwest coaches is supposed to fix some of that, because rather than having guests come directly to Augusta, maybe they would come via motor coach to alleviate some of the congestion on the roads. He's also established a shuttle that goes from one end of Augusta to the other and will eventually come into Washington also, because there's to be a tasting room, a wine tasting room in Washington. So I think that the plans are there. I think that they're trying to be foresightful enough to anticipate and solve those problems that sometimes can happen. So, but the biggest thing, and I'll just say this for the entire year of 2020, is our ability to remain flexible and to accommodate what guests want and what they need to feel like this is the place they want to be. So like I was telling you earlier, trying to make sure that accommodations are what they want, offering en-suite dining, having more dinners. So whatever that means to an individual business, how can you be more flexible, I think is the key to continuing to have people wanting to come to your business.
And speaking of investment upgrades with an eye towards the future, Hubert, you touched on that fantastic Caverns has been adding a lot of value to its property. You've been improving the grounds, adding some trailways, and adding things to do on the property. So why did you guys decide to make that investment in 2020? And how do you see it helping improve the future of visitor experiences at fantastic Caverns?
Well, it's all providing those connections with nature for us. And so, like, if we can add to that, even if it's just a stroll on our grounds, even if it's not, a 3-mile hike, just having that ability to connect with the natural surroundings. So we take them to the cave. We want them to have that experience. But if they can get topside, a lot of what we talk about in the cave is how water flows through the Ozarks Hills. And so there is a lot of connectivity between the surface and the subsurface. And so, any way we can kind of highlight, bring that connection, but a lot of it is kind of that added value for entertainment purpose. We do have, as much as we wish we could not have any wait times for guests, we do have a bit of a wait time depending on how guests flow through the visitor center. So anywhere from, sometimes it's quick as 5 minutes, but sometimes it could be closer to an hour. And so giving guests an opportunity to not just sit and wait. We don't want them to sit. We want them to explore while they're necessarily, waiting to go on that departure. So a lot of that added value, the reason we decided to, invest in the property was because we wanted that visitor experience to be better. If anything, when we had those repeat customers, if they'd come before the pandemic, we want it to be that much grander and, just more appealing for everybody. And with that, I hope that it's one of those things we can also maybe educate people. One of the investments was pervious pavement. So letting water infiltrate into the soil. A lot of hardscapes means water is being shed off and maybe in a direction you don't want it to be. So if we can maybe get more water into the cave, into our aquifers. So honestly, a lot of these investments are also learning opportunities. We try to make learning fun, but when encouraging conservation, it is one of those things you usually have to kind of paint that picture for guests and how the surface is connected to the subsurface, and what we put down, whether it, be water or a pesticide or a fertilizer, can come back up in our well or your neighbor's well or the waters we play in. So creating that connection and adding value, adding those little activities on the surface or information panels, just kind of helps cement that hopefully with the guests on that being like a very natural, outdoorsy and hopefully, conservation oriented experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one question for everyone, what major change do you see coming to the tourism business for the next 3 to 5 years? So Stephen, I'll start with you.
I think that Hubert, Kevin, and Peggy have touched on this a little bit, but consumers' expectations about what they're going to see and do at any place from a lodging property to an attraction, I think is going to be different. They are going to feel and want to know in advance, what's happening there, what protocols may be in place. I think certainly, as Kevin pointed out, for the next year, health and safety protocols at different businesses are going to be something that the tourism businesses really need to communicate to their consumers. And so I think that is going to be something that is really at the forefront of people's minds. Again, I talked about earlier, that kind of rediscovering nature and the outdoors, as Hubert just kind of alluded to there with his comments. And those, small town getaways, people I think are going to really appreciate those. One of the things that we have seen is, while car travel is maybe more preferable now than airline travel, what we are seeing is people are willing to take longer car trips than in the past. So, whereas Kevin might get a lot of clients from Nebraska and Kansas now, maybe here he's going to from Colorado or from the Dakotas coming down, because people, I think, are more willing now to hop in the car and make that 10-hour drive with the family or by themselves, whatever the case may be, to enjoy an experience, to get out and explore. And if there are some of those, again, outdoor things they can do along the way, I think those are going to be things people are interested.
Stephen, how do you think the pandemic has accelerated that draw towards longer road trips? And do you think that's something that we would have seen without the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question, Emily. And I don't know the answer to that. Air travel certainly is convenient. I know in the news in the last couple of weeks, we have seen some stories about the inconvenience of air travel. But certainly it is important to the travel industry as a whole, both on the leisure side and the business travel side. And so it is very important to the visitor economy. But that may be, again, kind of one of those rediscovery things that people realized, hey, I can hop in the car and I can drive from Kansas City to Springfield in a couple of hours, and I can go do all these things. I can visit the caverns, I can go to Wonders of Wildlife, or I can leave St. Charles and go down to Washington, and I can enjoy some sugar fire barbecue on the riverfront. maybe go get a pie at Cowan's. And, there's all kinds of things that people are going to discover or have discovered. And I think are really enjoying maybe some of that road trip experience, if you will. And there are really some really nice road trip opportunities here in Missouri for people to enjoy, whether that's kind of the Route 66 stretch from St. Louis down to Joplin, or that Highway 36 stretch from Hannibal to St. Joe, Highway 19 down through the Ozarks and Eminence area and the Ozark Mountains. There are really some great opportunities for people here. And I'm hopeful that they do take the chance, take the time to get out and enjoy them and experience what Missouri has.
Peggy, I want to move on to you next. What do you think is the major change we're going to see in tourism in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think maybe piggybacking on what Stephen said is, I think appreciating what's here. Since we've had our focus shifted from where can we go out, we'll see the shift be to what is here and how we can enjoy those things that are here, and really appreciating those things and enjoying those things rather than looking to go somewhere else. So I see that. I don't know. It's so hard to see what the future brings, but I only see good things for Missouri tourism from where I'm sitting.
And Hubert, let's move on to you. This could be a major change you're seeing in tourism or your segment of the tourism industry, and things you're seeing for Fantastic Caverns.
Well, I mean, we do see a lot of interest. I do think, like Stephen had mentioned, people are interested in outdoors. And I will say that, we have a lot of folks that stop by just because it's something, outdoorsy to do, especially when it's raining. But we are benefiting, I will say, because we also get intercept travelers. I see, I've had a lot more families getting back together, it seems, and whether they are passing through or coming to the Ozarks as a destination, I do think that, I think in the next few years, because people haven't, and seeing their loved ones as much, I could see, more of those friends and family gatherings, and maybe make it more of a destination, or even enjoying what's in your backyard. I know for Fantastic Caverns, we only see about 6% of our overall attendance tends to be those that live right around us, like right there in Springfield. And we've kind of seen that increase here recently. So I could see people kind of, instead of overlooking what's right there, kind of saying, hey, we can travel, out of state some other time, but maybe we should go see what's right here in our neck of the woods and invite our family and friends to come stay with us, or to visit us. So I feel like we've seen a bit more of the family reunions and friend reunions happening. And I'm kind of excited for that. So need to plan my own.
Yeah, me too. And Kevin, finally, let's go to you.
I think probably people have rediscovered staycations and day trips. Quite honestly, I took advantage of some of that during the pandemic. Osage Beach and Lake of the Ozarks is one of my favorite Missouri places. And a lot of people still are unaware how great, I call it the Missouri Riviera. I mean, it's just the shoreline at Lake of the Ozarks being more than what's in California. And it's a beautiful place. And so I think being able to discover not unique, but great Missouri destinations can provide for a lot of entertainment and a lot of relaxation. So I think the pandemic may have forced people to look within as opposed to without for their vacationing needs, tourism needs. And I think that's going to increase because it's been exposed.
All right, great. So now we will move on to some questions from our audience. And remember, for those of you who are watching, you can submit questions in the Facebook comments using our Zoom Q&A feature, or by tweeting at Mo Business Alert on Twitter. That's at MO Business Alert.
So thanks, Emily. One question we have in the chat from Connor is about how to sort of make customers comfortable with many people still being pandemic weary. This was touched on a little bit earlier, but even with vaccination numbers up and many people are still sort of scared of the pandemic, how do you address that with your respective customer bases? And that's for anyone of the panelists to jump in. It wasn't directed at a specific panelist.
I mean, at Fantastic Caverns, I will say that we fell outside the city limits, so we didn't have to require a mask mandate. Most guests did bring their masks, but we provide masks still if someone wants them. We issue tickets first come, first serve, but to the best of our ability, if someone did have a concern, we make accommodations. And I might be sharing too much, but if we needed to, we can give you kind of like a seat in the Jeep with the driver. That's not something offered. It's not like you get that just by request, but because of maybe an allergy concern, or if there's somebody that has a pet, we are pet friendly. So we make those accommodations based on position within the Jeep Drum Tram, or even another departure time. If someone's waiting to or willing to wait, we would establish a new departure time to accommodate the request, whatever the concern may be. But I will say most people at this current juncture, most people don't wear a mask. There are a few that I see walk through the door, but when we were in the midst of the pandemic, we didn't broadcast this, but we had departures that sometimes had guests that were completely masked, and then departures because it was a church group or something that they didn't have any masks, but we separated those groups out to the best of our ability, and we just did different departure times, and we didn't let them commingle.
I think that we're planning to continue to offer the ensuite dining. We're going to continue to honor anyone who would be more comfortable if masks were worn. We have no problem doing that. We are certainly going to continue the cleaning protocols that were put in place, having hand sanitizer available. So all those things that were introduced, there doesn't seem to be any, it's not that difficult to continue them. And if that makes our guests feel more comfortable and safe, then we're happy to do it.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, and we're still formulating these policies because, again, we just got back. But I think, we'll have sanitizer, we'll sanitize the facility, we'll foam the facility, et cetera, et cetera. We'll probably make masks optional, leave it up to the guests. If they want to wear a mask, by all means, wear your mask. I don't think we'll mandate mask wearing at this stage of the game, unless something comes up that something comes up out of the blue that we're not aware of.
Gotcha. And thank you for everyone for all of the questions. We want to be mindful of everyone's time, and I see we're almost here at the hour mark. But while we've got just a couple minutes left, I have one final question for all of you, is that what has been an unexpected positive thing that you've learned about your businesses or about Missouri tourism during the pandemic? And Peggy, we'll start with you.
Oh boy. Unexpected. I think the joy that people have getting out has been such a bonus, because my husband and I, we love running Hoefel Haus. It brings us so much joy, but to have people come and really enjoy our place and find it as a respite from this kind of crazed pandemic world, that has just been incredible, to really feel like we're not only running a business, but providing a service that brings people happiness has been really, I think, the best part of it all.
Kevin, let's go to you next.
From my perspective, we survived it. We survived the worst part of it, at least. We're here, we're back. We're getting ready. We're trying to open the doors back up again. We will open up the doors again. It's just a matter of time and process. But the positive thing is that this organization, what we do, what we represent, is strong enough for us to still be here 16 months after shutting down completely.
And Stephen, how about you?
I think that for me, I've always kind of felt like the tourism industry is really a family type of environment. And I think that during this time, we've really seen how strong we are as again, that family, and how close we are and how much we care, quite honestly. Just thinking about Kevin's experience, I mean, he's talking about, some of the personnel decisions he had to make. That hurt him, right? I mean, you could hear it in his voice, you could see it on his face. I've been I've been there, and I understand it. And I really think that the tourism family does care about each other, and I think we really saw that, magnified over the last 16 months of just how much we care about one another, how much we care about the industry, and how much we care about our visitors. There's a lot of people have done a lot of things to try to provide a good, safe, and memorable visitor experience. And to me, that goes to the caring and compassion that our industry has.
And finally, Hubert.
Yeah, well, same. I say ditto to all, right? I will say the unexpected silver line is, you kind of embrace adaptability, but that overwhelming sense of community that came about because of the hardship. I mean, there were a lot of different people from, the realm of tourism, but even other industries that really did try to pull together. And I will say, I studied anthropology. One thing I like to see is bringing out the humanity in all of us. And like you said, that little bit of empathy, that little bit of concern for your fellow human is always appreciated. One thing I like is even the guests, the guests would, ask our team members, how they were doing. And you don't always, I mean, we always welcome that, but you don't always get that. And I felt like with the pandemic, there was a little bit more, how is everybody today? Is everybody doing all right today? And that's always appreciated. I will say, as much as we can be social and, be the people we're meant to be and just, love one another.
Well, I think that is a great note to end on. Thank you all. That is all the time we have today. And once again, I'd really like to thank our panelists, Stephen Foutes, Hubert Heck, Kevin Henderson, and Peggy Hoefel. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing such wonderful insight. And thank you to everyone at home who has joined us today. A recording of today's discussion will be available soon for you to revisit and share with others. And if you're interested in keeping up with everything else Missouri Business Alert is doing, check us out at MissouriBusinessAlert.com. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.